Okay, so we'll recall divergence theorem. Basically, it relates the triple integral with the surface integral. So it says, supposing G is a closed bounded simple region in R3 and whose boundary is an orientable surface, so that is important. F is a vector field which is defined on G including the boundary in an open set, and it is a continuously differentiable vector field. So all nice conditions are put so that the line integral, the flux of F across S, so that is F dot n ds, that is the flux integral is defined, and the theorem says is equal to the triple integral over G, the region enclosed by S, of divergence of that vector field, right? So that is divergence theorem, and we had already looked at on this side S is orientable, so n is the outward unit normal, that is the care one has to take. Right hand side is a triple integral, so no problem arises. We were looking at extensions of this theorem to various other domains. So we proved this theorem only for simple regions. Then we said the regions which you can patch up by simple regions, you can extend to them. So the concentric, the region enclosed by concentric spheres. So those are another type of regions where it is applicable. The torus, the cycle tube, okay, the region enclosed inside the cycle tube. So basically, the non-overlapping surfaces is the one where it should be applied. So let us look at some examples which we were looking at last time also. We are looking at a paraboloid, okay, above the xy plane, okay. So region bounded by this. So we got a paraboloid. So let us just look at the picture. So this is a paraboloid above the xy plane, and we are looking at the region bounded by this above the xy plane. So the surface it consists of two parts. One is the curved part of the paraboloid. One is the flat part that is of the xy plane. So to apply divergence theorem, we have to first, this surface it consists of two parts. Both are orientable, right? So on this we will give the normal which is pointing outside, okay, and on the lower part we have to give a continuous unit normal which should be pointing outside, so that will be minus of k. So here we will be picking up the normal which has got positive k component always, right, because geometry says that the outward normal will be the one which will be having positive k component. So pick up, so calculate the normal here, calculate normal here, calculate f dot n over respective, and calculate. So n1, that is on this normal, so that is 2x plus 2y plus k. So k component is positive, so this will be the normal chosen, right? So we write f dot n1, so f dot, this is n1, so f dot dx dy, this is ds, so this is a unit normal, so f dot n will be f dot rx cross ry dx dy, okay. So compute, put the value of f and compute. So the projection of this d, the projection is this disk with radius 2. So we can write down in terms of x goes minus 2 to 2, y goes from minus 4 minus y square root plus to minus square root, and compute those quantities. Similarly for the second surface which is a flat, right, the flat portion, the outward unit normal is minus k. So again we compute f dot n2, so that is equal to, right, the projection is same for that surface, right, onto the xy plane the projection is same as the disk. So that is x minus 2 to 2, y minus 4 square root y square to 4 minus y square plus square root, f dot k, so with that is only that minus y square because it is, this is f, and minus k, that gives you minus y square. So compute and you check that the two come out to be equal. Actually in this case, when you add these two surface integrals, the sum comes out to be equal to 0. Let us see from the from the divergence theorem, if this is a vector field that we have taken, what is the divergence of this? f1 with respect to x, so that is 0. f2 with respect to y, partial derivative, that is 0. f3 partial derivative with respect to z, that is 0. So integrand is 0, so divergence equal to 0, so the integral is 0. So that verifies the divergence theorem for this surface, okay. So like Green's theorem, this theorem, because it relates surface integral with the triple integral, so there is the advantage that one of the integrals may be easy to compute, so you can use that to compute either of them. If the triple integral is easy, you compute that, right, instead of computing the surface integral. Or if surface integral is easy, you compute that instead of computing the triple integral, right? So let us just see one application. For example, if you are given a region bounded by the three planes, okay, xy plane, yz plane and xz plane, and some other plane, say here it is given as 2x plus 2y plus z is equal to 6. So that is a surface. So the surface consists of four parts, right? One is portion in the xy plane, portion in the xz plane, portion in the yz plane, and the third plane, which is slanting plane, right? So that is the four planes are there. And if you want to calculate f dot n for this, you have to calculate four surface integrals. Each one has to be given a parameterization. Normal has to be found, right? Appropriately, the outward normal has to be computed. So four surface integrals you have to compute and add them to compute the left hand side of, right, in divergence theorem. But divergence theorem says that you don't have to do that much work. You can write it as a triple integral of the divergence of the vector field over the region enclosed by this. So only one integral has to be computed. So that saves work, right? So that is advantage of one advantage of. So G is a region. So it consists of non-overlapping. So instead of computing this, which is over four surfaces, one can compute the triple integral of the divergence. Say if the function is this, vector field is this. So this surface integral, which will consist of four parts and then added together, is equal to one triple integral, which one can easily compute, right? Computing the divergence, and is a simple integral to be computed. So that is, one has to make choice what stage, which one you want to use, whether you want to use the triple integral to compute the surface integral or surface integral to compute the triple integral. That is, choices sometimes can be made depending on the problem. So let us look at another example of two. See, in Green's theorem, if you recall, we proved something like, in case the integrand, what was the integrand in the Green's theorem? If pi plus qj is the vector field, then you had partial derivative of with respect to q of with respect to x minus partial derivative of p with respect to y, the double integral. And we said if that integrand comes out to be 0, then it gives you the freedom of changing your boundary, changing your curve, right? You can change the curve according to your choice, right? For example, we had that example of x over x square plus y square I plus y over y square plus x square plus y square square root j, right? That vector field which was not defined at the origin. So around any closed curve, we could evaluate the integrand of, evaluate the line integral of that, right? Something similar is possible here. So here the condition would be, the requirement would be the divergence of the vector field should be equal to 0. Then if the boundary consists of two surfaces S1 and S2, S2 is outer, S1 is inner, then integral over S1 plus integral over S2 will be equal to 0 because the integrand is 0 in the triple integral. So integral over S1 will be equal to integral over S2 with appropriate orientations, right? So similar things are possible. So the same example we had for 2 dimensions, we can extend it to 3 dimensions. So basic idea is, supposing you have got a surface region enclosed by two intersecting non-overlapping surfaces. One is outer, other is inner. So then integral over S1 plus integral over S2, that is the integral over the boundary of the region enclosed, that is equal to, by divergence theorem, integral of the divergence over the region G. If that happens to be 0, so that will give you integral of S1 is equal to minus integral of S2 with appropriate orientations. So that is the idea. So let us, for example, if S1, if you are looking at the outward normals, right? Imagine kind of two spheres, concentric spheres. Outer one will have outward normal there, right? Pointing outward from the origin. And for the inner one will be inward. But when you take negative of that, that will also make it outward normal. So for both S1 and S2, integral over S1 will be equal to integral over S2, both normals pointing outward, right? Something like in Green's theorem, both circles become counterclockwise orientation. You can change from arbitrary closed curve to a circle or anything. So same example, only the third factor is added to make it. So this is a vector field which is defined at all points in R3 minus origin, right? So at all such points you want to apply your divergence theorem. So let us imagine some surface, right, a bigger surface and a smaller sphere inside it, right? It's something compared with a bigger circle and a smaller circle, or a bigger closed curve and a small circle excluding the origin. Something similar going on here. So if you look at the region in between these two surfaces, then on that f is defined. So divergence theorem will be applicable. So I can write down the appropriate equation, integral over the outer one, right, pointing outward, here it pointing inward. Those two will be equal if the divergence is equal to 0. Okay, and in that case, if you recall, divergence of that vector field x over x square plus y square plus z square, that is, if you recall, that is a radial vector field, right? Because its value depends only on the position and on the radial direction. At a point, same point, at equal distance, the value is same. It's a radial function, right? And for radial function, we have already shown divergence is equal to 0. Okay, so divergence for such a radial function, the radial vector field is 0. So you can compute also and check that is actually, for this case also it is equal to 0. So integral over the bigger sphere, bigger surface S plus integral over the smaller sphere, right, will be equal to, where n prime is the appropriate normal pointing away from the region enclosed. For this S sphere of radius A, it will be pointing towards the origin. So when you take it to the other side, it will be minus of that, so you can change it to pointing outside. Okay, so that will be pointing outside here. So you can now, the advantage is here now once again, like in Green's theorem, you know this surface now completely. It is x square plus y square plus z square equal to, you can give a parameterization, right, you can compute it, right. So now this surface S is not known, we know nothing about this surface, still I am able to compute this surface integral in terms of this, because divergence of that vector field was equal to 0, and that we can compute by putting the parameterization for the circle. So x square plus y square equal to a, so you can give a normal, you can compute, right, that is always pointing outside, that is a position vector is the normal, so that is what it gives me, and hence you compute, so that comes out to 4 pi. Like in Green's theorem, it came out to be 2 pi, right, so that is something similar. So essentially what we are saying is, whatever was true for Green's theorem, similar analysis can be done for divergence theorem, using divergence theorem from 2 dimension to 3 dimension, and similar applications are there, right. Then let us look at some identities. We had what was called Green's identities for as applications of Green's theorem, right. They were identities which gave you something special about what were called harmonic functions in the plane. So they were solutions of for the Laplacian del square equal to 0, right. Same thing you can do in R3. Only one more component has to be added. So let us just go through that. It will help you to revise your analysis of Green's theorem also. So let us look at the vector field F, which is F times the gradient of a vector field G. F and G are scalar fields, right. So gradient gives you a vector field multiplied by a scalar. So this is a scalar field. So look at this vector field F times gradient of G. To this, let us apply our divergence theorem, right. So what I have to do, I have to look at F dot n, right. So over the surface will be equal to divergence of this vector field over the region enclosed. So let us compute the divergence of this. So what will be divergence of this? So it is del dot F, so it is F gradient of G, so it distributes over this. So it will be del F dot del G plus del square of, right, F times del square of G, right, using the formulas that identities. So now we can apply Green's theorem. So this is where the Laplacian is appearing into picture, right. So that is Laplacian of G appears here. So let us write down the Green divergence theorem. So divergence of F is equal to F dot n. So that divergence we have computed. So that gives you del F dot del G, that was divergence of the vector field F, plus F del square Laplacian of G is equal to, right, on the right hand side is F, the vector field F into gradient of G, that is a vector field dot n, but only the vector part is only gradient G. So I can take the dot product with this, gradient of G dot n. Now this thing, as in Green's theorem, we wrote as a directional derivative of G in the direction of n, right. So this is the directional derivative of G in the direction of n. So we can write that. So that will give us, right. So that is one of the identities that is called Green's identity. Okay. We'll see applications of this soon. Let us do some more like we did for Green's theorem. Let us take f equal to, for example, interchange f and g in this equation. Interchange f and g, they were arbitrary vector fields, right? So let us interchange f and g. So this will remain as it is. Okay, only this will become g times del square of f, and here will be g times directional derivative of f with respect to n. And if I subtract those two, then this term will vanish because this is common in both the integrals. So interchange f and g and subtract one from the other, so you will get another equation, another identity. So g del square f plus, that was the equation, so subtract it from the other one, so this term will vanish, so you will get f del square g minus g del square f is equal to f del g minus g del f del n, right? Interchange f and g, they were arbitrary vector fields, and subtract. So this is what you get, okay? So this is another identity which is sometimes useful. This is called Green's second identity. We'll see applications of all this one by one, okay? What is application, we'll see. So let us, for example, let us look at the first identity, which said for f and g scalar fields, I have got gradient of f into gradient of g is equal to f into Laplacian of g, right, is equal to directional derivative. So let us take f to be identically equal to 1, the scalar field which is identically equal to 1. So that will give me, what will happen to this one? That is 0. So this is 1. So this is Laplacian integral of, right, triple integral of the Laplacian over g is equal to the directional derivative over n integrated, right? So that gives you, only this term survives. This is f is equal to 1. So that term is here. Integral of the Laplacian is equal to something similar we got in Green's theorem also, right? So now what does it tell me? So supposing, for example, this directional derivative, now you see the conclusion will come, you will say something about the property being true on the surface will give you something being true inside the region. That is what essentially it says, okay? So for example, if you say that this directional derivative is equal to 0 on the surface, that will give you the integral of the Laplacian is equal to 0 over, this is over g, triple integral inside, right? So this is one of the important theorems, and the functions where this Laplacian is equal to 0, they are called, as we have seen for 2 dimension also, they are called harmonic functions. So what does this give you? That for example, if the function is harmonic, that gives you this is equal to 0. Either way you can put it. Either the right hand side, the directional derivative is equal to 0, that gives you the integral of the Laplacian over the whole region g, triple integral is equal to 0. Or if you say that the function is harmonic, then the left hand side is equal to 0 and gives you the right hand side is equal to 0. And what is the right hand side? That is the integral of the directional derivative over the surface, right? Normally, supposing I divide this quantity by the area of the surface, okay? So that is given a name. Look at 1 over the area of the surface into this integral, okay? That quantity, what does it signify? What does del g by del n signify? That is the rate of change of the function on the surface. So this is the total rate of change of the function on the surface, and this is the total surface area. So you can call this as the average rate of change of the function, okay? You can call this as the average rate of change of the function. So it says for a harmonic function, right, this came out to be 0 for a harmonic function as consequence of Green's identity. So it says for a harmonic function, this average rate of change of the function along the normal is equal to 0, right? If the function is harmonic and you want to know what is the average rate of change of the function along the boundary in the direction of the normal, then that average is equal to 0, right? So this is something about the Laplacian, a property of the harmonic function. So this goes by a name, you will see it probably in your physics or some other examples in electrical engineering. So for a harmonic function g, the average of its rate of change of s along the outward normal is equal to 0. This goes by a name, this is called Laplace theorem, okay? So we will see probably more of it later on. But what I am saying is, basic idea of Green's identity is, by saying something about the surface, you are able to say something about inside, or by saying something about the inside, you are able to do something about the properties on the surface. That is the basic property of this. For example, let us say put f is equal to g in this equation, right? That was the second, that was the first identity itself, right? So in this, if f is equal to g, that gives you f times Laplacian square is equal to norm of the gradient f square is equal to f into gradient of f divided by n, right? Supposing your function is also harmonic, it is a harmonic function, f is a harmonic function, then this term will vanish. So what you will get? That the triple integral of norm of the gradient, right? Something similar we got in Green's theorem also, is equal to f times the directional derivative of f into n, right? The integral of that. Now what does it tell me? Supposing f is equal to 0 on the boundary, then the integrand will be equal to 0, right? Or the directional derivative of f along the normal is equal to 0, then also this integral is 0. So either f is 0 on the boundary, f is a harmonic function, and it is 0 on the boundary, supposing that condition is satisfied, that will imply that the integral of norm of the gradient of f is equal to 0. That means the gradient must be equal to 0. And if a domain is nice, that will mean f must be equal to 0, a constant, but on the boundary it is 0, so it must be 0 everywhere. So we are able to say for a harmonic function, right, if it is 0 on the surface, then it is 0 everywhere inside also. So just by saying on the boundary some property, you are able to say everything is known inside also. Or for the function, supposing the directional derivative is equal to 0, you don't want to say the function is 0, but you have another property that the directional derivative is 0 everywhere on the surface. Then also this is equal to 0. Again that will imply the same consequence, that the function will be equal to a constant function inside, but the rate of change on the boundary is equal to 0. So it will be the same constant everywhere, right? So something about the function on the boundary, either saying the function is known on the boundary, a harmonic function, or its rate of change along the normal direction is known, right? It is 0. Then you say it is constant everywhere inside, you know it everywhere inside it. So that is the importance of, it has many physical applications, so we'll see it, so that is it, okay. So equal f is 0 or the directional derivative is equal to 0. So that will say that this is 0, so that equal to 0. And hence, if g is nice, that is what I have said, g is nice, right? Whenever you want to say that the gradient is equal to 0, should imply that everything is 0. So you are able to join points by lines parallel to the axis. That is what it nice means here. So it says for a harmonic function g, if either the directional derivative along the normal direction is equal to 0 or f is equal to 0 on s, then f is equal to a constant inside. A very important and nice property. So this is how it will look like in a course in partial differential equations. You will see you are trying to solve, say del square f is equal to 0. Okay, you are given a property. Del f satisfies this equation, right? It will look like this. Looks like a differential equation now. Only the partial derivatives are coming into pictures. That is called a partial differential equation, which you will see later on more of it. It satisfies this partial differential equation. Del square f is equal to 0, and you are given a boundary condition that on the boundary either f is equal to 0 or the directional derivative in the direction of n is equal to 0, right? Then you are able to solve this equation, right? This partial differential equation with this boundary condition has a solution, namely f must be a constant function, right? And 0 if the first one is satisfied. Okay? So essentially it says a harmonic function is uniquely determined by its values on the boundary. You can say indirectly also this way. A harmonic function is uniquely determined by the values on the boundary of a region, where if it's harmonic inside a region G, then you know its values outside on the boundary, then you know it everywhere. It is uniquely determined by that. So that is the application of this. So that is what application of Green's identities say about the harmonic function. Now you can ask me, where does this harmonic functions arise? So here are one or two examples of harmonic functions. The first is flow of heat in a body, right? In a body in 3 dimension, heat is flowing. It is like a fluid flow, right? Heat is also a fluid. It is flowing through the body at a point x, y, z in the body. Coordinates are x, y and z. time is t, at time t, you note down the temperature of the body. So it is a function of 4 variables, the position, x, y, z and the time. So that one, from physical considerations, one says, one deduces, like taking a small portion, how much is the fluid going in, how much is the coming out, all those things. We have seen that actually, right, for a fluid flow. The partial derivative of u with respect to t is equal to c square. C is a constant which depends upon the body and other conditions, is a constant of the Laplacian equal to 0. Laplacian of u. Okay. So here that's how the Laplacian enters into picture. That's why it is an important function. It gives you continuity of the heat, right? Heat flowing in a body, temperature at a point. So if the partial derivative of u with respect to t is 0, what does it mean? That means the temperature does not depend on time. It depends only on the position. At that point, if I note down temperature now, and after 1 hour I come back and note down temperature is same. It has not changed. It is a function of the position only, not of time. Right? Then this will be equal to 0. And then what you will get? Del square u is equal to 0. You will get a harmonic function. Right? So if the temperature does not depend on time, if the heat flow is steady, right? Flow of heat is steady, it does not depend on time, then the solution will be a harmonic function, right? So that means what? That means to know if the body is there, you want to know what is the temperature inside at a point, but you are not able to reach physically inside, right? You can measure the temperature only on the surface. So measure the temperature on the surface and supposing, right, you know the value here, then you will uniquely say the values inside are this, because it is a harmonic function, right? So that is application of this kind of theorem. So heat flow, that is a harmonic function. Okay, so that is a harmonic function. Okay, another one, the gravitational force field that we have already seen, right? Because it is radial, so it is conservative also. We have seen it is a conservative vector field, right? So that also is harmonic. So the potential function for F, if F is the gravitational force field of attraction, right, then we have seen it is conservative, so we will get a potential function F. That function F, right, is equal to gradient of, capital F is equal to gradient of F. So what will be the divergence of that? Yes? Divergence of capital F is equal to 0, right? Radial function, we have seen it already. If F is radial, divergence of that is equal to 0, that we have already proved. So this is, but what is divergence of F? In terms of the potential function, F is equal to gradient of small f. So what is divergence of capital F? That is del square of small f. So that means del square of small f is equal to 0, so small f is a harmonic function. Okay, the potential for the gravitational force field is a harmonic function. Okay, so that is another way harmonic functions arise. And this attraction comes also in your electricity, magnetism and so many places, right? Attraction between two bodies. Okay, so this is one extension of Green's theorem. Namely, Green's theorem said something enclosed by a simple closed curve in a plane, right? You can write that line integral in terms of the region enclosed by that simple closed curve. And region in the plane was, right, a planar region. So double integral came. And we said we have got an extension of this in 3 dimension, right? And the extension in 3 dimension is the divergence theorem. Instead of a closed curve, the boundary being a closed curve, now the boundary is a closed surface. Okay? Now there is another extension of Green's theorem. We saw that Green's theorem has a what is called the curl form of a Green's theorem. Right? That line integral f dot dr also was written as curl of the vector field, right? The double integral. So we want to write a corresponding theorem, a corresponding extension of that theorem for 3 dimensions. So the curl form of Green's theorem also extends to 3 dimensions. So to do something required, so let us do that first. The orientation, here the surface is not going to be a closed surface. One extension was the surface, right? A region enclosed by a closed surface, that is divergence theorem. We are going to extend it to surfaces which are not necessarily closed. That means what? They will have boundaries. That means that surface will have a boundary. So what we are going to do, a surface is given which has a boundary. So what are we going to do? Instead of the region enclosed, it is a surface enclosed by that boundary. We will think it that way. So the line integral over that boundary is going to be interpreted in terms of the surface whose boundary is this curve. Right? So we are going to relate surface integral with line integral. That is going to be, following what I am saying or not? See, Green's theorem said, you take the region enclosed, right? You look at the planar region. That is a surface whose boundary is, you can think it as a surface, the plane region as a surface whose boundary is at close contour, right? So it relates, and what is the surface integral over the plane thing? It is a double integral, essentially, right? You can think it that way. Green's theorem relates, right, the line integral over the boundary of a surface with the surface integral, okay, of something. That was curl f dot n over the surface. Right? Now in that form, instead of being a plane surface, we want to make it a arbitrary surface in R3. Same thing. So the boundary remains a curve, right? That will give you the line integral of a vector field f dot, right? F dot dr over the boundary related to something being integrated on the surface whose boundary is this curve, simple closed curve, right? So now there are two things coming into picture. One is the boundary, which is a simple closed curve, other is a surface, right? And both have orientations, right? When you want to integrate surface integral f dot n, right, or anything dot n, that n has to have a continuity, so that surface should have orientability. So now what we are trying to do is, given a orientable surface, we want to integrate something over the surface, and we want to integrate something over the boundary of that surface also. And on the boundary there is going to be orientation, on the surface also there is a orientation. How are these two orientations related to each other? That is the first question that comes. Can we have some kind of a relation between the orientation on a surface, right, and orientation on the boundary, right? So that is what I want to discuss, which is going to be important from the point of view of, so let me try to draw a surface. Okay, so this is the surface S. So this is the part, right? So what is the boundary of this? Let me write the boundary. So this is the boundary of the, right? It is not a closed surface, so there is a boundary. So this part is the boundary of the surface S. Okay. Now, for this surface, this is an orientable surface. So at every point, I can choose a normal like this, or I can choose a normal which is going the other way around, right? At every point, I can choose a normal. So let us choose a continuous normal for the surface and let us fix it. So let me fix the normal. So let us say that this is a normal that I am going to fix. Okay? So at every point, this is a normal that I am going to choose. Okay? Now, so what I have done, on the surface which is orientable, I have fixed a orientation by choosing a continuous unit normal. Corresponding to that, I want to fix a orientation on the boundary. Now on the boundary there are two orientations possible. One is going like this, other going opposite way. Which one I should fix? And which one will give me a nice result, which I should say is compatible with the boundary of, with the orientation on the boundary of, compatible with the orientation on the surface. Something is orientation on the surface, something on the boundary. I want these two to be compatible with each other. They should match. So what I do is the following. At any point, okay, this is the normal. So let me take a small closed curve around that point on the surface. Take a simple closed curve on the surface around that point where you have fixed the normal, right? So for this simple closed curve, I can decide a orientation. Let me imagine I am sitting at the top of this unit normal and looking down at the surface. I will give this anti-clockwise orientation. So what I am doing, at every point where a normal is sticking out, I look down, and for a small closed curve, I give anti-clockwise orientation. So what will be the orientation for this? So let us give the orientation for this. Anti-clockwise orientation will look like this. If you are looking at from the top. Is that okay? Now so at every point I can do it. Now imagine this point being brought closer and closer to the boundary. Imagine this point to be brought closer and closer to the boundary. So if a point is somewhere here now, okay, so what the orientation will look like? Supposing the point is here, right, and this is a normal. So this I will have, and supposing that simple closed curve I am able to draw, which touches the boundary only at, say, one point. Suppose I am able to draw such kind of a thing. Then what will happen? On this simple closed curve, I have got a orientation coming from the orientation of the normal, right? So what was that orientation? So that was, I should be going this way, right? Now on this curve, either I can go this way or I can go this way. If I want to be compatible with my orientation of the normal, which way I should be going? Should I be going this way? Yes, because it is coming like this at this point, it will be going like this. So I should be going like this to be compatible with the orientation on the surface. Right? So what we do, given the surface, given the boundary, we first fix a orientation on the surface. Right? Whether this normal or this normal. Once you have fixed the normal, okay, around every point, think of a small closed curve. On that you give a counterclockwise orientation. And imagine that to be near the boundary. So that orientation on the simple closed curve on the surface, boundary also is on the curve. Right? These two should have matching orientation. If they are cutting at some point, essentially touching at some point, then we will say this is a compatible orientation. Geometrically, is it clear to everybody what we are doing? Okay. So coming closer and closer, so that will be the orientation. So this is what is called compatible orientation. So let us write this. Okay. So S is a piecewise smooth orientable surface bounded by a simple closed curve C. Let us look at the boundary of this. Call that as C. S is a surface which has a boundary, and that is a simple closed curve, and that is C. So let us fix a continuous unit normal S on S, and let us choose an orientation on C. If they are compatible, then we will say that orientation is the one which is compatible with, other one will be the non-compatible orientation. Right? So that is what is compatible orientation means what? Select a simple closed. So I have just whatever I said. So this is a point. So this is a surface. This is the boundary of the surface. Take a simple closed curve. Looking at the top, you give anti-clockwise orientation, and imagine that comes closer and closer. So that will give you the orientation on the boundary. Okay. So that is what is written in terms of word. So on this, that anti-clockwise orientation on the simple closed curve, sometimes also called positive orientation on the closed curve. Okay. So imagine it, point is very close and touching it. So then normal will be going up, and that will be the orientation. So that will be the anti-clockwise orientation. So that is the compatible orientation or the positive orientation with respect to the selected orientation on the surface. So once you fix the orientation on the surface, automatically a orientation on the boundary gets fixed by this process. Right? A slightly more rigorous way of saying these things is the following. There are geometric way and there is a, so like we said for on the plane, what is the clockwise and what is anti-clockwise? Clockwise is when you are walking in the direction, the region lies on your left. Something similar you can describe in 3 dimension also. There is a surface, right? You are walking along the surface, and the normal is in the direction of from your feet to the head. That is the direction of the normal. Then the surface should be on your left side, right? You are walking along. Here is the normal. Okay. So that direction, if the region is on this side, left side, then this is the right orientation. It's compatible with the normal is going up. You are walking in this direction, right? This you can also write in terms of mathematics actually, because walking in a direction, that means tangent is fixed, right? That normal is fixed, right? The normal on the surface is fixed. Your direction in which you are moving, that is fixed, right? And you want to know whether you are inside or outside, right? So let's take the outside normal. So you get three vectors which are perpendicular to each other, right? One is the tangent to the curve boundary. Okay. Other is the normal to the surface at that point, and third is the normal to the curve going outside. This triple should form a right hand system, right? Right hand system. From 1 to 2nd if you go, the third one should be going up. From the normal, if you are going to the tangent side, here is a normal, here is a tangent. If you are moving along that side, then you should be moving along the normal, the third vector, unit normal on the surface. That should be a right hand system. So that is a more mathematical way of deciding it. So let us just, let me show you what I mean. So at any point, you look at the three vectors, xi, the outward normal, to C, tangent and the normal. So this is what I mean. Okay. Here is the middle finger, here is the normal N, the unit normal. Okay. Here is the thumb, so right hand system, right? From thumb, if you go to the index finger, right hand screw kind of a thing, if you tighten it, it should go up, right? So from here, xi to T, xi and T are on the curve, the boundary. Xi is the outward normal, T is the tangent. From the normal, if you are moving in terms of that, then the normal should come out of your head, right? You are moving on the left side. Right hand system. That is a mathematical way of describing this. So let us probably, for a long time we have not seen animations, right? Okay, let us see one today. Okay, this is what I have sort of tried to animate with the hand, but that is what. So this is the surface, and this is the boundary, the red one. That is the surface. So take a point, take a normal, give the anti-clockwise orientation looking at the top, right? This will be the positive orientation. When you bring it closer and closer, it should match with that one, right? So that is the basic idea of this one. Okay. Let us look at some examples at least, okay? Concrete examples where this will help us to understand. So let us look at a part of the xy plane, a square, that is my surface, okay? The plane is orientable. The plane, xy plane is orientable. Any part of the plane is orientable. You can either choose everywhere the continuous unit normal which is going up or going down. Choice is yours. So let us say that you have chosen continuous unit normal to be k, which is going up at every point. So we have fixed on the surface a continuous unit normal. You want to know what should be the compatible orientation on the boundary. So what is the boundary? Right? This is the boundary of it. So what you will do? At a point, you will try to imagine you are going anti-clockwise. Right? You will be going anti-clockwise. So at a point, you imagine you are going anti-clockwise. Now you try to enlarge it a bit sort of. Or you imagine you are very close, you are going like this. Right? So that should be the orientation on the boundary. Right? So the arrows which are pointing are already shown there. That is the compatible orientation with respect to the unit normal which is going up. If you take the other one, then it will be going opposite. Right? Orientation will, compatible orientation will change. Is that okay for this example? Let us look at slightly, not that straight an example, look at this kind of thing. Okay? So what are we doing? What is the surface I am looking at in this example? I am looking at a plane, right? An inclined plane, but that plane is not part of the surface. Right? I am looking at the xy plane, yz plane, xz plane. So these three things is sort of a triangular region is being bound by it. Right? If I make the plane also, then it becomes a closed surface. I am not looking at that part, inclined part. That part is not part of the surface. Okay? So I want to know that on this, what should be the compatible orientation? There are two ways of looking at it. One, let's look at that triangular portion only in that inclined plane. Right? That plane which is inclined, let us look at that as a part of that surface, boundary as part of that thing. Then I can give one orientation to that. Other can come from the, see, this is a common boundary for two things. This is interesting now. This triangular region, okay, I think let me draw a picture separately. Otherwise it will look very complicated. Okay. So what I am looking at? I am looking at this surface. Which part is this? Second part of the surface is this. Third part is equal to this. Right? So the surface consists of three piecewise orientable surfaces, S1, S2 and S3. So what is the boundary of this surface? Right? That is this triangle. Right? So the boundary is, okay, going from A to B to C. Right? This part is the boundary, that lines. I want to give that a orientation now, which should be compatible. Okay? So let us look at S1. Okay? First of all, my surface is S, which is equal to S1 union S2 union S3. On that, I should give a compatible orientation. Right? So let us say on S1, okay, let us give an orientation there. What is possible? On that plane, this is part of, this is X, this is Y, this is Z. So this is part of XZ plane. So two normals are possible, one in the direction of positive x-axis, other in the direction of negative x-axis. So choose whichever you like. So let us choose the negative one, which is going behind. Okay, so it will be going like this. So with respect to that, let us look at the boundary of this triangle, the part in the the part in the YZ plane only. So what will be the orientation? That should be going like this. Right? Looking from the behind. You are looking from behind. So what will be the orientation on this part of the triangle? What is anti-clockwise? Depending on from which side you look at it. Right? So on A to C, which side it should be? C to A or A to C? Okay. Everybody agrees? No? Okay. So, looking at the back side normal, you draw a circle on the back. The best way to look at it is, imagine it in the front, whatever it is giving you, give it the opposite one. Why to twist so much? Right? A easier way is, imagine it is on this side. Right? Now you see, already simple things are causing problems, whether it should be this way or that way. So it depends on, see, in 3 dimensions, viewing is a problem. The same thing you can view it coming out, and same thing you can view it as going out. That is a problem. See, that is a problem. This arrow, one way of is optical illusion. You can think it as coming out from this side. You can also imagine it as going out back side. Right? But you have to decide which one you want to give it. Okay? So let us say, whichever normal you choose, it gives you this orientation. Okay? Supposing this is the orientation which you decide whichever way you are looking at it. Now for S2, which one you should be giving? Because after all your surface is S1 union S2 S3, when you want to compute a normal, right, F dot n over this combined surface, then these two should be cancelling out because there is a common boundary. Right? That is a common boundary. So your orientation for this part should be going like this. Right? Then only they will cancel out and you will be able to integrate F dot n over S1 union S2. And similarly on the third one, so if you look at the third one, so this is going, so on this one it should be going like this. From this part it should be coming like this. So they will all cancel out. So on this part you will have got this orientation, having fixed the appropriate normals on S1, S2 and S3. Right? Now let us look at another point of view, the same example. Imagine this boundary as part of a triangle which is in that plane. Right? I can imagine also it is a boundary of a surface which is in that plane, the triangular region in the plane. So if this is the plane, okay, let me now probably draw it again. So now I am looking at this plane. Okay? On this, I want to fix a normal. It's a planar region. So only two normals are possible. One going out and one going in. So let us say I'm like from paper I'm pointing it outside. So this is outside normal. From the paper I'm coming out of it. And the origin is at the back side of it. Okay? So what will be the orientation I should be fixing on the boundary? That should be the orientation. So this should be the orientation for, if I have chosen the other one, so now you see there are two ways of looking at. So this is going to play a very important part in our theorem, which is going to be called Stokes' theorem. Integral depends only on the boundary of the surface. For the same boundary, you can have many surfaces. So you will be able to choose the surfaces according to your requirement and find the integral. Right? But the important thing is giving a compatible orientation to the boundary of a surface. There is a surface which is orientable. Choose a unit normal, whichever you like. Accordingly, give a positive or what is called positive or compatible orientation on the boundary of it. And next time I will state the theorem which relates the line integral over the boundary of a surface with the surface integral over the oriented surface. Okay? So let us stop it here today.